Welcome to S&P 500 Turbo. Like, subscribe and follow this channel if you want to learn how to beat the S&P 500 by 20%. Now that 2025 is coming to an end, I'm asking myself which bank had the S&P 500 predictions right for 2025. Here they are. The content of this channel is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Always do your own research and consult a professional before making financial decisions. Here are the three financial institutions that came closest to today's actual S&P 500 number, which is around 6,900. Back in December 2024, Deutsche Bank predicted 7,000, Wells Fargo 7,007, and Oppenheimer 7,100. As you can see, that's pretty close. All the other banks were much lower. None of the other banks went actually higher. Pretty much all of the banks, including the three listed, have changed their forecast throughout the year, throughout 2025, because of the hiccups in March and April. However, I've taken the numbers from December 2024, so they're pretty close. These three banks have a pretty good record. Even in 2024, those three banks were the closest. So for my S&P 500 Turbo strategy, I'm going to use these three banks for my 2026 prediction. Here it is. Advancing to 2026 year-end predictions for the S&P 500. You can see those three banks coming in at 8,000 for Deutsche Bank, 7,800 for Wells Fargo, and 8,100 for Oppenheimer. Today, December 29th, 2025, the S&P 500 is around 6,900. So you can see all of these three banks have a positive outlook or prediction for 2026 for the S&P 500. Whereas Oppenheimer tops it out at 8,100. But they're typically on the high end. They're typically the most positive from all the predictions. What does that mean in percentage? So Deutsche Bank is coming in at 15.9% growth in 2026. Wells Fargo 13%, and Oppenheimer for a positive 17.4%. For the S&P 500 Turbo strategy, I'd like to be a little bit more conservative and say that the growth is 9%. To recap, I'm saying 9% growth of the S&P 500 in 2026. How does that apply to S&P 500 Turbo? Now, if Deutsche Bank is right at 15.9%, that means S&P 500 Turbo is up 19%. So that is plus 20% more than Deutsche Bank. Wells Fargo says 13% for the S&P 500 Turbo. That would mean 15.6. And then for Oppenheimer, it means 20.9%. So keep in mind, it's 20% more than what the S&P 500 is going to do for the year, or in this case, the prediction. If I was right with my prediction at 9%, then the S&P 500 Turbo would give you 10.8%. As you can see, no matter what the actual growth in 2026 is going to be, S&P 500 Turbo will provide an additional 20% on top of that. Track the performance of the S&P 500 Turbo strategy right here on the channel, and go to the website sp500turbo.com. It will list all the videos and the latest news, and it also includes a member tab. To access the member tab, just subscribe on the website. It's free, and you'll get access to the iPanel, which compares the S&P 500 Turbo to a S&P 500 ETF, and also lists the hypothetical transactions it took to give you 20% more growth. This channel will go live January 1st, 2026.